So the other day, I rewatched this story trailer for Marvel's Spider-Man 2. And it made me think. I was like, wait, something is not right. Something seems off. Because the vibe that all of these trailers give off are completely different to the vibes the actual game gives off. But why is that? Was it just false marketing? Did they show scenes that were not in the final game? Or what could it be? The soundtrack! Today I want to talk about why Spider-Man 2's soundtrack feels so weird and how it causes the entire game to feel soulless with way less personality coming from it. This is a topic that I want to talk about for a while now, so without further ado, grab some snacks, grab a drink, and let's go! Now first, let's quickly cover as to why music is important in the gaming genre. You see, music is a very important aspect of visual media because it gives certain scenes, and therefore the entire project, in this scenario the game, a certain atmosphere, a certain vibe. You see, I have always wanted to talk about this, but I think Spider-Man 2's soundtrack is pretty mediocre if you ask me. I will come back to this in a minute, but first let's quickly talk about the soundtrack of the previous Spider-Man games. Marvel's Spider-Man had a breathtaking soundtrack that gave you goosebumps every 5 minutes, which aside from the already memorable story moments, gave this game so much more personality. Even before you actually get to play the game, you get absolutely blasted by that menu music. Every time you swung around New York City, during combat, or stealth, or even the story and the cutscenes overall, you would get blasted by this orchestral-like epic music, which really made you feel like you were playing an actual movie. Spider-Man Miles Morales even expanded upon that by remixing that orchestral-like music with beat drums, which first was really creative, and second, once again, added so much more personality to this game. Like, this soundtrack just screams personality, it really feels like Miles. With Spider-Man 2, however, I can't say the same unfortunately. Look, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is a fantastic game.
Say that again?
And it is truly one of my favorite games of all time. But the soundtrack is just so weird and forgettable if you ask me. Now, when I'm saying that the soundtrack for Spider-Man 2 is mediocre, I'm not referring to the soundtrack itself being a mid or bad. This game does have some absolute bangers, such as the intro and outro music, the symbiote Spider-Man theme, that thing goes so hard. Miles' theme is pretty cool and Kraven's theme is cool too. But it isn't as powerful as the first two games. It doesn't scream that much personality and epicness. There is no moment in the game such as fighting Otto with that epic music in the background. An example for this would be the open world music for Peter Parker. Instead of having this powerful, epic, heroic theme while swinging through the city, we now have this. Again, I don't think this is bad at all. It's pretty relaxing and hopeful if you ask me. But personally, I just prefer the theme of the first game so much more. And just generally, the music offered in Spider-Man 2 is much more soulless in my opinion. And if the soundtrack is gonna feel more soulless, of course that's going to affect the actual game too. The atmosphere is not as alive or as epic. And because of that, the game can feel a bit weird or disjointed at times. Even when we have heroic moments in the story, they're just not as memorable or powerful as the first game because of the music. Now look, I do agree that a part of this is the story's fault because it gives certain moments or characters or the story overall way less time to breathe and to be fleshed out, but at least for me, the music does half of the job. Which brings me back to the beginning. Notice how because of the music, the trailers feel so much more intense and powerful. The one that stands out the most is the story trailer. Take a listen on how the music makes all of these scenes so much more appealing.
Hey MJ, I have another name for you. Kraven. He's here on some kind of hunt.
You know if you need me, I'm just a call away.
Hey, you don't know what you took from me.
All Miles talks about is how to be a better Spider-Man. how to help you.
What the hell's going on with Pete?
He's not himself. Go help him.
This was our dream. I'm not going to lose him.
Just because of the music, the entire vibe we get from this trailer is vastly different than the vibe of the actual game. It makes me question as to why Insomniac didn't use this track in the actual game. It's emotional, intense, but also intimidating. It makes you feel like something big is coming, not a threat, but rather a big adventure. But the actual game doesn't really feel like that. Again, this soundtrack does have some good parts, but even then, the soundtrack just lacks so much personality. And the problem is that this lack of personality really spreads throughout the entire game. It's not just that one part of the entire game lacks personality, it's really the entire game. Stealth music, combat music, the open world music, each character's individual theme. Everything just feels so much more bland. Still don't get what I mean? Well, let me show you. Take a listen on Peter's opening theme in Marvel Spider-Man 2, and then to the same theme in Marvel Spider-Man 1, and tell me whether if you notice a difference. Which kind of frustrates me because it makes me question as to why Insomniac would even do this. Why would they go from this excellent cinematic, heroic soundtrack to this? While we don't know for sure what the reason for this choice was, I have one theory. So in case you didn't know by now, Marvel Spider-Man 2 was rushed by Sony during development, which on its own explains so much. And perhaps that also affected the soundtrack. Maybe they just didn't have the amount of time to put as much heart and soul into the music. Look, I'm not a musician, but the composer for the soundtrack for this game was the same composer who made the soundtrack for the first two games, John Pacino. And don't get me wrong, he's a really good composer. He's by the way also the dude who composed the soundtrack for Infinity. And given that he never really misses with his soundtrack, this theory does make the most sense to me. Another thing that you guys might not have noticed is that the entire soundtrack Marvel Spider-Man 2 has to offer is not even half as much as the first game. Even with themes like Miles. Again, I'm not gonna say that Miles Morales' theme in Spider-Man 2 is bad or anything, but man was it a downgrade from the Miles Morales game. Well, at least in my opinion. And all of this, more than anything, is why this game feels so much more off or bland compared to the first two games. The atmosphere of the first two games felt so much more powerful and strong. Every single part of the soundtrack of these two games had so much heart put into it, and as the player, you can really feel that. But somewhere in the second game, something changed. The music seems way more bland and not as heart-pounding as before. And thus, the atmosphere not only feels way less powerful, but the entire game can also feel a little bit disconnected to the first two games. Marvel Spider-Man 2's trailers teased this epic, heart-pounding adventure, but the game's music didn't quite deliver the same feeling. And that's the thing about music. It doesn't just fill in silence. It shapes how we experience the world. It can make swinging through New York City feel heroic, make a fight feel terrifying, or even make a quiet moment feel powerful. Without it, even the best gameplay, the best story, and the best looking cutscenes can feel soulless. Thank you so much for watching.